My reading journal has definitely been a favourite from my lineup so far this year, so given that we're 6 months down, let's have a flip through to see what's working, what's not, what I'm loving, and what I'm thinking about changing. The notebook that I went with for this year is this beautiful full cover design with deckled edge pages. I was a little apprehensive getting started that I wasn't going to like the deckled edges, especially because when I first got this notebook, it kind of irked me that it was deckled on this side, but not deckled, so smooth on top and the same on the bottom. I've actually kind of really loved it though. I had thought about this more so in terms of the general theme I wanted to go with for the start of journal setup. So kind of a darker, slightly spooky type vibe. Essentially kind of thinking of the reading journal as a spell book, which funnily enough this one was called a spell book design when it was released. It's gorgeous. I'm a sucker for a full cover design, so I have very much enjoyed using it. But opening on up so that we can have a look at the pages, on the inside cover of this one we just have a very pretty front cover piece. And while in my everyday journal I usually stick things over this and make it kind of functional, I've just left this very open, just put my name in. I figured I didn't need any other kind of reference materials right up the front, but something I did want to have at the very start was my reading tracker. This one has 52 individual spaces because my reading goal for the year is 52. I picked this one because there are 52 weeks in a year, so it's kind of like one book on average per week. Do I always achieve that? No, but some weeks I managed to finish multiple. So across the 6 months that I've recorded on here, I've already filled up 3 out of 5 shelves, so technically ahead of schedule. Something that I am not ahead of schedule on, in the sense that I have neglected to fill it out properly, is my index. I kind of got to page 7 and then I was thinking, oh, okay, I don't really have that many lines on here, so which pages in particular do I actually want to record on here? Started to think about it too much, didn't end up filling it in. But on this one, you can start to see the decoration I went with for the start of journal setup. We have a PET tape, which is actually transparent with black florals, that is laying over the top of sections that I coloured in with a black pen. While the ones at the bottom look like they have barely anything there, I promise that when the light catches them, they're very, very pretty. And I just went with a couple of different variations of having like corner pieces or panels and other little bits and pieces tucked in as decoration, so I still have nicer large open areas to put in the information I wanted to. But flipping on over, after this we have my ratings section, so just breaking down what each of my star ratings mean for 1 through 5 stars, not including the half stars even though I actually do use them, mainly because I wanted this to be more simple. I gave myself some questions at the bottom that I can ask myself to help assign the ratings, and rather than going with a kind of more complicated rating system for this year, previously I was using Corpile and found that it was just a little bit too complex for what I wanted to do, I'm going with a vibes system this year, which effectively stands for the very important book evaluation scale, something like that. But it essentially just means I'm going to go with a gut feeling and assign one of these based on the general blurbs I've written here for myself. I've put in my reading goals, only one of them so far has been checked off, which is hosting the Goober Readathon, which happened in May, and I'm slowly working through my 12 recs from friends, my 52 books in 52 weeks, reading all book club books. That one's going to take the full year because it's 1 book per month. But I also have a reading retreat away, host a proper movie marathon, and grow our reading community, which technically I suppose I kind of have done. And if you'd like to join our reading community, that one's linked in the description box. We would love to have you over there. It's free to join, it's really chill, so jump into the description to find that link. On this spread though, we have a running list of my books read, and come the end of the 6 months, I have perfectly filled out 1 page. I say perfectly, I haven't actually filled in the rating for this one, but it came all the way to the bottom, so like perfectly. Here you can see the decoration I went with these 2 panels on the side, so just keeping lots of open space to write in the titles, the ratings, and the date that I completed those books. I don't foresee having to add any additional space to this. I think that in the second half of the year I'll probably slow down on my reading a bit, mainly just because I find in the last 3 months of the year in particular, my reading kind of stalls out in favor of doing Vlogmas and stuff like that. But after this one, we then have my series tracker, which I both like and dislike, mainly because on this side, which is the side I initially filled out, you can see that everything is kind of like tightly packed. So it's like header for Lore Olympus, volumes 1 through 8, no space, then the next header, so on and so forth. But then over here, I left a gap between each of them, and I'm like, grr, they're not going to bring out a third in the Shepherd King series, because that's a duology. They're also not going to bring out a third in the Web of Silence duet, because that's a duet. So I kind of messed up a little bit. Not to the extent where I feel the need to like redo the page or anything, but it is a little frustrating. On here I just have a little box for each of the entries in any series. I can color it in black once I've read it, or if it's in grey, it means that I read that before this year, but I still wanted to record that it was part of the series. The ones I have are Lore Olympus, Saga of the Unfated, the Ruinous Love Trilogy, Order and Chaos, The Empyrean, Caraval, Heartstopper, The Hunger Games, The Shadow Demon Saga, Crescent City, The Shepherd King, The Web of Silence, Crowns of Naxia, which I still have more space to add more series, but I try and avoid starting series unless I'm kind of like very committed to finishing them. And I also don't like to start a series that hasn't already been finished, because then you get into a point where you just have to wait for things to come out and it's very frustrating. Also, I only add them to this series tracker once I've actually committed to continuing with the series. So I can read the first in a series, and until I decide that I want to continue, it doesn't get added to this spread. After this one though, we then have a movies watched list, and that's because for my reading journal, I like to put movies and TV shows in here as well. It's kind of like an old media book, mainly because I found last year, when I was keeping my reading journal as just a reading journal, I wasn't really feeling very enthusiastic about watching TV shows and movies, even though I wanted to watch them, because I felt like if I watched them, then I can't record that I watched them in my reading journal because it was just for reading. And it got me into this like weird place with my hobbies and leisure activities, so I just decided to include those in here as well. Essentially the same setup as the books read though, so date that I watched the thing, the title, the rating. Definitely have some ratings that I need to go and add here. But then after this one, we have marathons, which is kind of like a series tracker, except they don't necessarily have to be part of a movie series. The only one I have here is part of a movie series, it's Shrek, but this could also just be marathons that my friends and I want to do. So maybe we want to watch all of the Studio Ghibli movies. We have had a marathon for that one. Maybe we want to watch all of the movies starring Amanda Bynes, or something like that. They don't actually have to be part of like a continuous series of like a continuous narrative or anything. Flipping over though, the next one we have are the TV shows and games that I am consuming. Similar idea to the series tracker from before. Anything in grey was consumed not this year, anything in black is consumed this year, and anything in white is like to consume. For this one, each of the little boxes represents one season of the TV show, and on here that gets added from right to left. So the rightmost column is season 1, then we have season 2, season 3, so on and so forth. As for games, similar idea for the box, like color it in when you're done or you've played it or whatnot, the title of the game, and then what platform the game was on. Mainly because I find a lot of the time assigning a designated completion date to a game is a little bit tricky. It's like, is it when I've completed the main story, or I'm completely done with the game, and then what happens if I decide to go back to it? It's also not a stat that I feel like I really need to have, so just writing down the platform is good enough for me. I also limit this one to games that are like kind of digital games, I suppose, or not board games. So mainly the ones that I have on here are either on computer or Xbox. After this though, the next layout I have is a check this out page, which is kind of like a recommendations page, but not quite. It's more so things that I want to investigate further to see if I actually want to consume them. I don't have a heap on there just yet, but this arch design in particular was one of my favorites from this start of journal setup. I think it looks really cool. But on the other side we have my wish list. So this is essentially like I've confirmed to myself that I do want to get this or read it or watch it or whatever else, so I can put it down here and check it off once I have acquired that thing. So like got the book, got the movie, got the TV show, or whatever. Something that I do enjoy doing but don't do all that often are buddy reads, but I wanted to have a spot for acknowledging those. So on here we just have a space for the title and then who I was reading with. I think that the spacing on this, well, I mean the spacing was kind of difficult because sometimes titles are really long, but then depending on who you're buddy reading with, sometimes the list of those people can get pretty long. I certainly would like to do more buddy reads in the second half of the year, but on the right hand side, this is my list of skills or topics to learn more about. I don't necessarily have to read to learn more about them. Maybe I could watch something or like listen to a podcast or something like that. But if I figure out something that I'm curious about, I add it to this list. Or at least I try to remember to. I'm not great with checking in with my start of journal pages most of the time. This spot here though is for my monthly challenges. So this is in particular getting involved in community readathons or read-alongs or other challenges. So far this year we had TBR-a-thon, Realmathon, the Magical Readathon, and the Goober Readathon. And then as a personal challenge, I did my Lucky in Love challenge, which was essentially a list of 20 different things that I could pick from. And by that, I mean I'd roll a dice or, figure it out some other way, because that's where the luck-based element comes in. I didn't actually end up doing one for June, so I'm not sure how I'm gonna fill that one in. Maybe just write none or leave it open, possibly. Something for me to figure out. But the next challenge I have is 12 from 12, or 12 recommendations from friends. In theory, when most people do this, it is from 12 different people. I didn't want to do that, so instead what I did was 12 recommendations from friends and family. So I have 3 recommendations from Rachel, 3 from Vogel, 3 from Monica, and then 1 each from each of my family members, so mum, dad, brother. As I consume them, I just put a little checkbox sticker that I made with my Cricut. I was very proud of making these stickers. I have used them thoroughly throughout this journal because of that. I also made a bucket load of them, so need to use them up somehow. But in terms of the recommendations, we have book recommendations, watchable recommendations, so movies and TV shows, and then game recommendations. Ideally, it would be 1 per month, so I'm a little behind, but it's all good, I still got time. I then also wanted to do the 25 and 25 challenge for books, so 25 books to read across the year of 2025. In theory, I should be up to like 12 finished from this list, but I have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So again, a little behind, but again, I've got time. I think the hard part about a challenge like this also is that you pick the books before the year starts, or maybe like at the start of the year, and then you might get to a point in the year where you're like, I'm actually just not interested in reading that anymore. There might be 1 or 2 on here that I feel that way about. I couldn't pick them out and tell you which ones they were though, but there are certainly some on here which are not like super high on my TBR pile. Another reading challenge I wanted to do though was a reading bingo, and I have been very lax with this one. Initially I was like, okay, you can only use 1 book for each square, but then I had nowhere to record which book was for each square, which is a problem I have run into before, so I should have thought about it. But then some of them don't necessarily need to be given to just 1 book. Like this is 5 books read in 1 month. That's not just for 1 book. So is it like if I'm using those 5 books in the month, do I not get to use them for any other square? So I just decided to go real easy mode, and as soon as I had done something as related to one of these, regardless if it's like 1 book checking off 3 squares, I just colored it in. I probably should consult my list again to see if I've read any that have been turned into a show or a film, but after this one we have the exact same thing, but for watchables. Now this one does say 25 films, not all of these are films. It's mainly because 25 things to watch in 2025 didn't really fit, and while I only have 4 stickers on here, I have started The Perfect Couple and I have finished Cinderella, so that's another 1.5 that I could check off. I've got a similar thing here with the watch bingo, and I know that I can certainly color in this one. I think I can color in that one. I did have a friend movie night. I have watched a sequel. I've probably watched something that was over 2.5 hours, but the rest of them I don't think I've done just yet. After this though, we move into the stuff related to the book club. So this one is just a general kind of summary page that I'm mainly going to fill in at the end of the year, because I want to write down like what was my favorite book, what was the favorite from the community, which one was our longest book, our shortest book, so on and so forth. But over here we have a little shrine for our 2025 reads, or the books that we have read this year. These are the ones that got selected as part of our reading polls for each month to say, yes, the book club is going to read this one. What we also have though are the Rebel reads, and these are the runners up because it's always like 2 books go head to head kind of a thing. One of them is selected, one of them is the Rebel read. I decided that they could have a designated space in the journal as well, but on this one I didn't want to put in star ratings for them because I haven't read any of these, and I wasn't necessarily going to be assured that I would read any of the Rebel reads, so just putting in the month in question I thought was sufficient. Plus it keeps the structure of the page the same, like we still have the kind of highlighted bar underneath each of the cover images, and then this is just another structure to show the same information. Something that's kind of related to the book club, but a little bit aside, is the Year of Goober challenge, mainly because it's hosted by the book club. This one has 2 prompts for each of the months of the year, and those are tied to the birth flowers and their meanings. So the idea is that throughout the year, as you read 1 book per month, you build up your bouquet, or bouquet. I don't know how you'd actually pronounce it, because in my mind I just want to call it a bookette, but that does not sound very pretty. For each of these though, I've just stuck in the cover image of what I read or what I'm planning on reading, and then wrote down which flower I tied them to. It's just a bit of fun. We've been having a good time so far. And I mean, the year isn't over, so if you want to join, you can totally jump onto it as well. That one's also hosted over in our reading community, which is linked in the description box. A lot of the prompts are quite open, so you can probably find things you've already read that fit the bill. What isn't so open though is the 52 in 52 challenge, which is, I think, hosted by the 52 book club. I had a spare spread, so I was like, I'm gonna just chuck this in here and see how many I can get. I'm not actively targeting any of these prompts. I'm just reading what I'm reading and seeing what fits. I have made fairly decent progress though, or at least I think I have. And I certainly need to go back over the list of things that I have read just to check and see if there's any other ones. Like some of them I know I haven't gotten yet. For instance, read in a burr month, so like September, October. We're not there yet, so I haven't done those. But some of the other ones I might have. Maybe. Another yearly reading challenge I decided to take up though was the Year of Aldea challenge. This one is hosted by G of Book Roast. It has this cute little map, which is essentially kind of like a game board because you start in the middle and then work your way out, following the path and kind of like set directions. So the directions I've gone and stuck in under here so I know what all of the prompts are. And then I've written down the directions that I took as the little grey highlights on this side, along with including pictures of the covers of the books. I certainly need to get on and read this month's one so that I'm on top of the challenge. But before we have a look at January, if you are looking to bring a new journal into your lineup, then I would love to recommend the sponsor of today's video, Tifosi. Tifosi has a gorgeous range of notebooks in a variety of sizes, so if you like A5 like me, you are in good hands, but they also have square notebook designs, ones that are bigger and ones that are smaller. One thing I love in particular is how many pages their A5 journals have, which means you can very easily fit an entire year into them, whether you're using it for your reading journal or just as an everyday journal or bullet journal. Another thing that I appreciate, given that I live in New Zealand, is that they offer free international shipping to 34 different countries and regions on orders over $25. So if you wanted to go and check out the range, be sure to jump over to Tifosi, and if you find something you love, be sure to use code JashiiCorrin10 for 10% off your order at checkout. We love savings. Thanks to Tifosi for sponsoring today's video, and now let's have a look at how my January pages turned out. Something that I very much wanted to do moving into my reading journal this year is monthly setups, or kind of like monthly collections that help set me up for the month, get me excited about what I could be reading, and also keep track of when I was reading and when I was watching things. That is the purpose of this page here. So we have a calendar structure for January on which I could highlight when I was reading things, watching things, so on and so forth. But given that I was recording readables, watchables, and playables, this got to be a little bit complicated. For any readable, it was the dot with the line that came out the side of it, whereas for watchables and playables, it was a highlight, and I was gonna make it that the location of the highlight in the box related to the different things. Notably, I kind of fell off with using it because it was just a little bit too complicated. And also one of the issues I found is that when I read a book, I don't necessarily read it every single day from start to end. I might read, for instance, on Thursday, and then not pick it up again until Sunday, and then read heaps of it on Monday or something like that. While I do think the layout looks cool, it wasn't the perfect layout for me, so I did end up changing it. Something I did very much enjoy having though was my challenge accepted page, where I could essentially designate different things I wanted to read and watch to the various challenges that I was undertaking for the whole year. So for instance, reading my book club books, doing my 12 recommendations from friends, reading a book for the Year of Goober challenge, and also completing my 25s in 25. This month I also had some buddy reads, so I put those down the bottom as well, and once I'd completed the piece of media, I put a little check mark. Notably, we have some that did not get check marks, mainly because I pick these before the month starts oftentimes, which means I don't necessarily get around to reading or watching exactly the combination I have here. Really, outside of the book club book, nothing else is set in stone. I could change my mind when the actual time comes to start reading or watching one of these, but I wanted to check off the ones that I did. Another thing that I wanted to include in these monthly pages were layouts related to whatever challenge I was undertaking for just the month in question. So for January, that was the Books of Paradise or TBR-a-thon hosted by Leandra here, the TBR0. So for this one, we had a map with various places. I liked the idea of drawing the map. There was technically a printout, but I like drawing maps. I think it's fun. So drew that one in here, listed out all of the places and what the prompts were, and then as I read them, I just checked them off. I had a spot to write down my total. I never ended up doing that, but I thought it was a bit of fun. Also, part of the reason that I went with a blue color palette and a blue theme for these pages is because the prompt list, or the kind of like resources for the challenge, were also in blue. Even though I didn't end up using them, I thought it was nice to match the color to that reading challenge. Flipping over though, the next layout we have is the pile of possibilities. So this is other stuff that I was curious about, either to read, watch, whatever else, and also a spot for the book club book. For this one, I just wrote down the title, author, read theme that the book was picked from, and also listed out some of the book club questions that we either could have talked about at the book club meeting or did talk about at the book club meeting. We typically aim to propose a range of questions, not saying that we're going to talk about every single one of them at the meeting, but it means that people, as they chat about the book throughout the month, can use those to structure their thinking. I ended up giving the book 3.5 stars, so I put that down the bottom here. And then one of the things I was most excited for when it came to doing these monthly reading journal setups is the stats pages. I love stats pages. I think they are so much fun. And the general structure that I've used for them has stayed pretty similar throughout, mainly just a couple of tweaks in terms of the spacing and the structure or whatnot, but the sections are pretty much the same. We have the media breakdown, which is just like how much of each type of media did I consume, my highlights, or things that I have enjoyed or kind of stood out from the month, a spot for quotes, a spot for at a glance, or in this case, January in numbers, and then my little pie graphs for the formats that I read in, the genres that I read, and the star ratings I assigned. For this month, I think I simplified it to 5, 4, and 3 stars, mainly because I printed off these little headers before I thought too much about it, because I do typically like to use half-star ratings as well. But I always love the way these ones look, and I love the summary of the kind of month in media. But in terms of the theming in my reading journal, this is where the theming stops, or at least takes a pause, because when it comes to doing each of my little blurbs for the things that I've been consuming, I like to theme those to the piece of media rather than to the monthly setup. So for instance, for Woman of the Hour, I was really playing around with the orange that was in the cover art. For Danganronpa, we have a couple of characters. For The Power of Moments, I was mainly just trying to pick a color that contrasted well with the blue, but it's been really fun to kind of branch out in terms of my decoration for my reading journal, especially because last year it was all browns and beiges, and while I did love them, I did also get sick of them. Essentially the thing that like unifies these and makes them a little bit matchy-matchy is having the cover art in the same place each time, and then having this double line border around each of the sections. So we have my first book of the year, my second book of the year, which I have actually been numbering as I go through, so 1 and 2, and it was literally when I got to the second blurb that I put in that I was like, ooh, I really want to do the same lettering style as is on the cover art. I drew this one out myself, decided I don't want to draw them out myself because it takes way too long, and instead opted to find printouts online and stick them in. Sometimes I can't find a printout online though, I have to go and kind of like make it myself. Like for these ones, I had to go and look up what is the font that they use in the Fourth Wing series. I found it though, so I could print them off and stick them in. Most of the time an individual book will just get a half page or a quarter of a spread, but I had lots of pictures that I wanted to stick in for these ones, so I got a little collagey with it. It was a lot of fun. And for a TV show season, I will sometimes do a full spread if I have enough to say or enough decoration to fill in the space, and sometimes I'll just do one page. So we have Arcane season 1. I'm not going to talk about any kind of like spoilers or anything about the pieces of media as we go through, but if you want to pause and have a snoop, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, we do have individual videos on the channel for each month, where I do my reading journal wrap up and go through each of the pieces of media, tell you about my thoughts in a kind of non-spoilery way. This one notably used a lot of screenshots from the season to do my decoration. But after this, we are into February. You can see one of the main changes that we have here is that I decided to adjust the structure of my kind of reading log. So going to a vertical style and just highlighting the days where I actually read or watched or did whatever. I also had to put in a little tip in here because I did run out of space. I ended up watching more than I had space for, and also reading more than I had space for. But each of the pieces of media gets their own individual, unique letter, as opposed to numbering like, you know, A for reading, A for watching, A for playing, and then those are indicated on this little calendar, which is numbered 1 through 28, because 28 days in February, and I just highlight the days that I consumed each of those things. For the challenges, this time I decided to limit it a little bit, especially considering I had picked out 9 different things for January's challenge page and only consumed like 4 of them, but that means we get some nice big pictures of the cover art, which is kind of nice, and I used checkboxes to indicate the ones that did get consumed. After this, we're into my personal monthly challenge, which was the Lucky in Love challenge, where I wrote down 20 different pieces of media that were in the romance genre, and then I could roll a d20 to find the next one that I would watch or read. These are the ones that I ended up completing. So we had the book club book, thankfully, because I was gonna read it anyway, Funny Story, and Lights Out in terms of reading. And then for watching, we have Crazy Stupid Love, The Age of Adeline, and Anyone But You. Just a very romance-heavy month for the season of love or whatever. I decided to make the space for the book club book a little bit bigger this time because I was gonna record my thoughts about the discussion questions. Notably did not do that. I was also gonna record down book club statistics, like maybe how many people showed up, how many people read the book, but it's kind of hard to grab that from Discord, so didn't end up filling it in. And I also didn't end up writing down any ratings, so mine or the book club average or the difference between those, didn't write it down. But the read theme we had was a retelling of Greek mythology, and we got a bunch of different recommendations. The ones that went head to head though were the Song of Achilles and Psyche and Eros won. I didn't end up going with a pile of possibilities for February. Instead, we just jumped straight on into the recap or review layout with the same sections again, so the media breakdown, highlights, quotes, my at a glance section, and then the pie graphs. I love the pie graphs. They make my heart happy. What doesn't make my heart so happy is when you try and color in larger sections with water-based markers and you kind of go over the same section multiple times and get the kind of streak marks, but it's fine, we're flipping on over. We have book 5, book 6, and book 7, and I didn't end up writing in the numbers for my movies, but I do put star ratings in for movies. I don't put star ratings in for TV shows though, because oftentimes, across the entire season, my thoughts and feels will change quite a lot, so it can be hard to assign just one rating. But in February, Vogel and I were doing an Attack on Titan marathon, so we have season 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4. Thankfully, I did record my thoughts as we were watching, because we watched the whole series in a weekend. And then I ended up giving an entire spread to Onyx Storm, mainly because I had thoughts and pictures to stick in. So I wanted to make sure I had plenty of room for both of those. I don't typically do a full page or a full spread for a book though. I ended up doing a full page for this one, mainly because the stickers were quite large, and because after we have our book club meetings, I often have a lot of thoughts. That's one of the things I love about the book club, is getting to discuss with people their thoughts and feelings about the book and kind of testing those against my own thoughts and feelings and such. So having a good amount of space to write, always quite helpful for the book club books. For March though, the theme that I went with was just inspired by this tape, essentially. I thought it was so pretty. It is slightly holographic, you might be able to see on the top kind of foiling here, but I paired it with this gothic inspired font, and in terms of the ones that I picked out for this month, all of them actually got checked off, so I feel pretty good about that. This one technically was a DNF, but I did consume it to the extent that I was going to consume it, so I'll give myself a pass. This was a month where we had a more elaborate monthly challenge page, because this one was Realmathon. We have the map, underneath here we have the prompt lists and such to kind of describe how it works, because you're essentially either giving points to your team or taking points away from a different team. So I wanted to describe how does it work, who is my team, how do the points actually get assigned, and then I also wanted to record which points I ended up tying to each of the things I was reading. So we have the reads here, or at least some of them, because I did read more than this, and then which points in particular I tied them to so that I could kind of keep track of it, or at least keep track of how I played. I didn't specifically write out how many points I contributed, but that's because the form that we used to do the challenge, it was all kind of auto-calculated, made it very easy to get involved. But flipping over, we have the space for the book club book, which I did not use a lot of this layout, and thus when I set it up the next time, I decided to par back. But we have a big open space for discussion questions that didn't get filled in, my thoughts that didn't get filled in, ratings, book club stats, the other recommendations, which did get filled in, and then what the winner and what the runner-up were. I love this decoration. Even if I didn't use the layout, I thought it looked pretty. At least it would probably look more pretty if I filled it in, but It's fine. We have that same kind of structure for the recap. I wish I had been a little bit more mindful of the direction I was coloring things in here, because I don't love that these ones are vertical and then those ones are kind of off on the diagonal and then those are also off on the diagonal, but I do still love having the statistics there. And this was a pretty good reading month, both in terms of like the amount read and the general ratings too, so that felt good. For the blurbs though, we have 4 pieces of media here, and this one was quite blue leaning, so I kind of lent into that a little bit with the decoration as well. Went a bit more neutral with this one because although we do have blue on the cover, it wasn't really the same kind of blue that we had in the other pieces of media. I don't usually try and match things across the full spread, mainly because I think I'd just get a little bit too perfectionist with it if I tried. But when it came to doing the reviews for the Lore Olympus series, rather than doing an individual blurb space for every single one that I read, I just decided to group them together. I figured it would be a little bit easier, not only to save myself space, but also save myself having to write a whole bunch and find the decoration and yada yada. I think this looks pretty good. I think it's pretty cute. And doing these different styles of decoration for each of the different things that I've played or watched or read has been really fun. Some of them I do feel like I could have done better, like the Caraval one for instance. I think I probably could have done better here, but it took me such a long time to make this title that I'm like, no, you have gotten as much dedicated time that you can have. Like, this is sufficient. You can just have some red kind of papers or whatever. It's also just keeping in mind what stickers I actually have, because a lot of this is done with like stickers or PET tapes or different washies or papers or whatnot. If I don't have a good understanding of what I have in my collection, then it's hard to figure out what to pull out. Like this one in particular, I knew instantly that I wanted to use this tape because it was perfect for the cover. But when it came to the Sims, I was just like, oh, here's a washi tape. That works, I guess. We have Life is Strange. Really enjoyed that one. I put in a blurb for Sprint, even though I technically DNF'd it, and this was another one of those titles I had to make myself, so it looks a little bit different to the actual main cover because I kind of went and trimmed all the blue out of this to get this picture, but then you couldn't see the S or the P very easily, so I added more blue back in. It looks a little interesting, but I still think it kind of fits the vibe. After this though, we have one of my favorite months in the reading journal, and that is April, mainly because of the theme. I love an autumn theme. I just think it looks really fun. I oddly enough love the color palette, even though orange isn't really for me. But we have the typical media consumed ladder, my challenge accepted page with the check marks to say which ones I actually finished, and then the reading challenge for April was the magical readathon. I wanted to have a place to indicate what I had read for the previous iteration or like the previous semester. I don't typically read for this challenge in the month in question, mainly because for the autumn semester, my character has to read 8 books. Trying to read 8 books in 1 month that I like pre-select the books or tie the books to particular prompts, kind of tricky. So instead I kind of give myself from the start of any semester to the start of the next one. So like for instance, spring semester started in April, and in theory the next semester will start in like September. So I'll give myself from the start of April to the start of September to read these, or read for these prompts. I don't necessarily have to go with the ones I picked here. But you can see we have a little tip in here, so I could write down what the prompts were for each of these, and then I wrote the prompts down for the spring semester over on this side. So far I have finished 2. Which is not great. I need to finish 4 more before the next semester starts. Probably should get onto that, but that is a future me problem. Here you can see I did condense the book club read space and I still didn't utilize it in full. The discussion questions didn't get added, the book club stats didn't get added, so I have adjusted this further to make it so I will utilize the page better. But then, because I had condensed it from a spread to an individual page, I didn't have a great use for this one, so I ended up making it a pile of possibilities just stuck in a couple of covers with the idea that I could go and add in some more if I wanted to. Didn't end up doing that, only read 1 from this list, but that's okay, 1 is better than none. On this spread though, we have the first iteration of one of the most boring recap pages, mainly because I only read 2 books, and when I only read 2 books, I either have a half or a full pie graph. So both of those 2 books I gave 4 stars to, so that's kind of boring, and both of them I read in a digital format, I believe. So nice and boring on the format front as well. Eventually I do also go and end up changing the at a glance statistics because some of these I just felt like I didn't really care to record. It took me a decent long while to get to that point though, so they're gonna stay the same for a little bit longer. Still love the autumn leaves though, really, really pretty. We have our first 4 pieces of media. We have the next 3. A lot of movies this month because I started watching movies during my workday so that I could kind of like just, pass time having something going in the background while I was doing stuff. And technically speaking, this one got consumed in April, but I left this page open so that I could put season 5 of The Rookie here, but I didn't finish it for quite a while. So this one sat open for a hot minute. One of the things that also happens with my reading journal is because I set up for the next month in advance so that I can film it for the channel and get the video out and all that, I have to kind of predict how much space I'm going to need between months to do all the blurbs. So for instance, if we flip back to, say, March, I had 1 spread, 2, 3, 4, 4 spreads that I had left blank for myself so that I could go and fill stuff in, and then we were into the April pages. So when I got to April, having had just used 4 spreads, I was like, oh, I'll probably need a similar kind of thing for April, like I'm feeling really good, I'm gonna get lots of reading done. So I ended up giving myself 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But I did not need these ones. Everything from here forward actually got consumed after April was done. I'm not too particular about it though. I wasn't going to stick the pages together or something because it's like, oh no, this is in the April section and you didn't consume it in April and yada yada. So flipping over, this was actually read in May. In May. I really enjoyed The Love Hypothesis though. I thought it was really fun. But we have Declutter Like a Mother, Sinners, The Disappearance of Vanessa Shaw, also read in May, very much enjoyed. I watched You Season 5 in May, so technically speaking should come after these May pages, but they didn't. May was the month of the Goober Readathon though, so in preparation I gave myself heaps of space to record lots of pieces of media, and although I did read and watch a lot of stuff, I did not need all the way up to Y. I think I got up to Q, and that's still pretty good, but I didn't need quite the full page. I ended up putting in a Dutch door for this one though, so we have the media consumed list, and then on the other side we have the challenges. I ended up reading these 3. I started this one, but still haven't finished it at this stage, and I'm kind of getting to a point where I think I might not finish it because it's been a second now. But in terms of the Goober Readathon, we had Ghosty Goober's plant study plan, so I wanted to stick in the prompts and the kind of like, structure of it here, and then also on the other side have a space for recording what books I was tying to the prompts or thinking about tying to the prompts, and also so that I could check them off as I went through. One of the ways to get points was reading from host TBRs, so I wanted to include what the host TBRs were on the underside of the tip-in, and I probably could have gone and checked off which ones I read here too, but I just thought that they were cute and they're little covers, so I just left them here. Especially because right here on the right hand side I already have cover pictures of the books that I did end up reading, and I ended up arranging these in the order that I read them. So 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. A very good reading month, especially because these ones weren't like small books, like some of them were kind of small, but other ones were just like, a decent average size book. Also, always nice to see how much I read there because it means that the pie graphs probably won't be boring when we get to them. I actually ended up filling in this BBBC read space, or Boudreaux Buddies Book Club, and I had left this spot open with the intention of coming back and finding something to put here, and I didn't do it. But that's okay. It kind of just goes to show that I really should have a plan for each of the pages before the month starts, but at least I got to use my plant decoration, which I thought was pretty cute. We have a lovely looking May recap page. So in terms of books, I read 9, 4 movies watched, 3 TV shows, and 1 game. Highlights, quotes, at a glance, that's still those same 4 statistics, and then formats, genres, and ratings. And again, a very good reading month. So I had a, 3-3-3 split of 4, 4.5 star, and 5 stars. I love the little graphs. I think they're so cute. But obviously I had already recorded some of the blurbs, before May. Well, technically I recorded them after May, but they're before chronologically in the journal. So those ones were all done. And then we have another 4, some movies that I watched on the plane. We have One Dark Window, which I am very eager to read the second book, but I just haven't gotten to it. Dungeons and Drama, Mission Impossible, The Knight and the Butcherbird, and then City of Mirth and Malice. I put this one over here because I knew I wanted to use a full page for it, but that also means I had a little gap that I had to fill in for June. At least this time I had better predicted how much space I was going to need. So June starts here, and because I had set up June before like the midpoint of May, it meant I kind of have a similar structure here with a similar problem. So I used up to Q, but still had R through Y that didn't get used, but that's okay, because now as it's happened 2 months in a row, I can notice that and adjust. We have the media consumed list though, we have the challenges, which I haven't gone and checked off, but I actually only ended up consuming one of these. I read the book club book. I didn't have a great reading month in June, to be honest, but I did have a very good watching month. And one of the first things we watched was Elemental, which got put over here. Another thing we watched was The Rookie, season 6, which got put, like, what, all the way back here somewhere? Yeah, all the way back here. But continuing through with June, we have the book club read, which again didn't fill in, and I think that filling this stuff in has become more of a chore than it has been something nice to have recorded. I think it's just like I don't know how much I care, because we end up capturing all this information over in the Discord space for the reading community, so do I really need it in my journal? I don't know. I ended up designating this space to a maybe next or like a pile of possibility type deal, and then after that we have my stats page, but given I only read 2 books, we have boring graphs. But the coloration of the graphs is looking a little better. Maybe not so much this one, but this one's looking great, because I went over it many times with my pen. The problem I have with this one is that I also went over it many times, but the color kind of looks quite different when you do that. Initially it was this kind of like teal bluish kind of color, but when you go over it that many times it's very green. It's all good though, because we can just flip over and pretend it doesn't exist. This one I did a little bit differently, because it is technically 2 books, but I read them back to back and I kind of wanted to talk about them together. So I've used the same amount of space as I would for 2 separate books. I've just combined the sections and put both of the cover images in. I did enjoy this series though. We have a couple of movies we watched for Friday 13th and then June 15th. And then we have The Rookie, season 6, because I'm just like really powering through The Rookie right now. Irish Wish, then a blank space because I accidentally flipped forward a page and filled this in first, and then realized I'd left a spread that wasn't done, so came back and filled this in. I need to remember there is a gap here to make sure that I fill it in. But we have Titan, which was a documentary about the Titan submersible, Cinderella, the Amazon movie, and K-pop Demon Hunters, which has definitely been a highlight this year. After this though, we are into July, which means the second half of the year, and after the July pages, we still have open space to use, but I'm just like a little bit worried that I'm gonna need a new reading journal in the second half of the year, just given that after setting up the July pages, this is all I have left in my reading journal. I might need to jump over to Tifosi and pick out a new one for myself. Obviously in this video, we didn't talk very much about the particular books that I read or TV shows and movies that I watched, but if you wanted to hear more about my thoughts about individual pieces from the reading journal, then this playlist has all of the videos we've had dedicated to it. That includes the initial setup, each of the monthly setups, all of the reading wrap-ups. So to check out any of those videos, click or tap on that one and I'll see you over there.